across America. Let freedom ring across America.
All right, this is Jeffrey Sisk, and we want to welcome you to the Zoo Podcast. We're going to have a very special guest on today, Nancy Schulze, a very fascinating person. I think you're going to enjoy talking to her today, and we're going to not only talk about some of the things that she's involved in, but we're going to talk about an event that she's part of tomorrow that is called the First Landing 1607 event. So we're excited to have her on today. Welcome to the show, Nancy.
Hey, good to be with you, Jeffrey.
All right. So you know, just to give the audience here, if they're not familiar with you, you have a very interesting background. Some of it mirrors my own. You've got a background in entertainment, in music. You've been on the radio, hosted a radio show in Florida. You were married to U.S. Congressman Dick Schulze, 9 terms from Pennsylvania. You're on the board of the Republican Women's Federal Forum in D.C. You started the American Prayer Initiative. You got so many things that you've been involved in, Nancy. It's too many to count. And, we'd like to hear about some of those things today and hear what you're involved in.
Well, I think I'm right now in the throes of a project that started 15 years ago when I learned how much women outvote men in this country, and especially women between the ages of 20 and 35 vote significantly to the left of not only men, but all of us. The single woman between the ages of 20 and 35 is 38% more likely to vote for secular left candidates than the rest of us. And you will see that manifest this election season. 80% of the TV advertising that is budgeted on the left this election cycle is going towards abortion. But what I did when I learned this 15 years ago, I thought, we have got to start talking turkey to women. They are the ones that are taking us down the road to socialism without, and I don't think this is intentional on their part at all. The left is very, very skilled and subtle, and sometimes not so subtle. They're getting less subtle as they're gaining more steam. But they've been for instance, on the abortion issue, they refer to the abortion issue, they frame it as a women's health issue.
Right.
And women's freedom issue, when abortion leads to anything but health and freedom.
Right.
The statistics on post-abortive women with regard to depression, addiction, divorce, suicide, off the charts. And we're just not talking about that part of the health picture for women. But you know what, Jeffrey, thank God we have a God.
Yeah,
who
absolutely.
In the business of forgiveness and redemption. And there are programs all over this country for, my grandson is a priest, and they have a program in the Catholic Church called the Rachel, I think it's the Rachel Project, to minister to post-abortive women and help them heal. So Anyway, that I kind of went off on a tangent there, but what I've been doing is producing seminars for women, for congressional wives.
Right.
And bringing in the best of the best speakers and the really heavy content, high content seminars. The next one There are going to be 13 speakers in 6 hours, and it's going
Wow.
to be intense.
Yeah.
And I'm bringing in people like the founder and president of Newsmax and people on that level. And the congressional, I speak all over the country, and it's my little strategy to develop a mini megaphone to the
Well,
country, kind of like what you're doing, Jeffrey. It's just a different approach.
that's right. And in America, we've got that. We've got our voice. We can speak out. And I got to tell you, we started talking about these demographics yesterday. Me not coming from politics, I come more from entertainment and internet and programming, all those things. I was stunned that the majority, that women outvote men to such a massive margin.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Is there data on what drives that? Why women outvote men?
I don't. I've got my own ideas. I mean, when you're in a culture where we have the feminist movement has suppressed and repressed natural male character and development. Men you were used to be reared to be the protector provider in
Right.
the home, and women were the nurturer gatherers. And when we have spent decades now putting men down, um, I just think it's affected our culture in a way that women who are 20 to 35 are looking for support, for protection, for financial support from Uncle Sam.
Yeah. Right.
You know? And
So
I
you
mean,
think the nanny state's got a role on that?
what?
So you think the nanny state has a role in that, where they've been, they're providing benefits?
Oh,
You know.
yeah.
Yeah.
40% of all babies in this country are born to single mothers.
Right. Right.
73% of Black babies are born to single women.
Right. And we talked about this. You get different things from a father and a mother. You get absolutely different skill sets.
Mhm.
So when children are raised and they're not getting that, and I'm not saying there's great single moms out there that, do a wonderful job raising kids, but there's a different dynamic, is there not, when you've got a two parent household?
However, I do know about one statistic with regard to, I think it was Barna, that followed this trend. And what he discovered is that if a child without a father has a strong male figure in their life, in other words, mothers who take their young kids to church and have mentors and what do you call that? Best friends, what is the great
I know the words you're seeking.
charity?
It means a big
You know what I'm
brother.
looking for?
Yeah. Yeah.
Big brothers and big sisters.
Yeah.
If there are big brother programs, type of programs, that the kids come through all of that almost unscathed by not.
Right.
However, I'm well acquainted with the prison fellowship ministries, especially prison fellowship itself, and the statistics on over 80% of prisoners in America come from fatherless homes.
Wow.
And then the president of Prison Fellowship said, and of the 20% that do come from homes with fathers, many of those fathers are abusive. So the fatherhood movement in this country is essential, critical, absolutely necessary for the
Yeah.
gaps that are just huge.
Yeah. And you really think about this, the nuclear family, it's like the foundation of everything. And that's what builds your really solid communities. That's where we have healthy birth rates. When kids are getting married,
Mhm.
having children, which happened when I was younger. I'm sitting on top of 60 years old, and that's what people did. They came through high school. Some went through college. They came out and they were excited to get married and raise a family. And this built a very healthy society and kept our birth rates up. We're now in danger of slipping below that 1.7 birth rate. And for people that don't know what that means, if you're not having enough children in your society, eventually your civilization, your culture will cease to exist.
It will collapse upon itself. And I just got off was listening to a podcast while I was getting ready to talk with you, Jeffrey, about the globalist movement is all about depopulation.
Right.
They're all about what we're talking about. They're all about um, uh, eliminating or destroying the nuclear family.
Right.
The nuclear family is built. The nuclear family is built on romance, on the love between a man and a woman. The nuclear family is built on love. And what we are doing by, insisting that our kids from kindergarten up, this is law in a lot of our states that they are exposed to all the sexual options open to them.
Right, right. And see, kids learn by example. So when they're seeing the love of that in that home, between their parents, they're absorbing that. Right. I mean, it is teaching them what that's all about and what proper relationships are about and what that means. And they see, their parents supporting each other, supporting them, being active in a community. So it has been a travesty. And I can see why that might be driving, as we've had shows that came out like The Simpsons that became real popular, and it shows men just to be bumbling, idiots. And when I was a kid, men were strong. They were leaders. And we wanted that in our society, right? And we're missing that now.
And just about every commercial on TV portrays men as the doofus, and the woman in the picture is sharp and efficient and resourceful, right. and the poor guy is standing there. It's all part of the work of darkness. Let's put it that way.
Right. So your idea was, 15, 20 years ago.
Let me just add one more thing.
Yeah.
Our economy is built on growth. If we don't continue to grow as a society, our economy will collapse unto itself as well.
Yeah, right.
Sorry for interrupting. I just wanted to be
sure.
No,
but you're right. We're in a free market economy, a capitalist economy. Companies have to continue to grow to support a stock price. All those things are all tied together. But what I was going to say a minute ago, so what happened is you got the idea that, okay, that's the demographic. So we need to start focusing on, making sure women are educated about the issues and all that. And this is what led you to go and start this gathering of congressional wives and get them to start building in their own communities, right?
Well, they're congressional wives. They are asked to speak all over the country, So and most of them, 90% of them, are professionals in their own right. They're busier than their husbands, to be honest with you.
Right. Right.
It's harder to get a group of congressional wives together than it is to get a group of their husbands together.
Right.
They're managing two households. They've got their own careers going. They're rearing children. They're going back and forth and supporting their husbands' careers, political careers. It's they live, eat, breathe, and sleep politics and policy and government just like their husbands do, and they know what's going on.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I should mention my husband actually served in Congress for 18 years. But one thing that I've learned recently that just was a stunner is I go to a meeting every Wednesday and we have speakers, and Scott Rasmussen was 2 weeks ago told us that only 8% of Americans actually talk politics every day. And what that tells me is that, and the other thing he said is, we're using language in the political world that 90% of America is doesn't know what we're talking about. The word woke, the CRT, the DEI, the ESG investing. The general public do not know. It's kind of like I liken it to, someone who's never been churched walking into a church and he's hearing all these words like sanctification and salvation and all these words that mean absolutely nothing.
Right.
And we in the political world, I also work with a large nationwide network of physicians, and I advise them politically. And I'm telling you, these physicians, within 30 seconds of starting to talk, they're in the weeds. I mean,
Yeah.
they're in the medical pig Latin that and I go, hold it, boys.
Yeah. Time out. We don't know what you're talking about. Right.
If we're going to communicate to the American people about healthcare, we need to start thinking in terms of speaking very understandably.
Yeah.
And
Right.
same way with politics. It's we just have to learn to communicate more simply. Women, by the way, within 2 months of learning about how much women outvote men in the country, the congressional, we were invited to the Pentagon for a briefing and a lunch and everything. And the general who was in charge of all healthcare for the Army said, we train men and women separately because women process information differently than men do.
That's
Now,
very interesting. Yeah.
Jeffrey,
Right.
is there a husband on the planet that doesn't understand what that general was
Yeah.
talking about?
Absolutely. We think differently. Absolutely. We're emotionally built differently. Everything is different about how we
Thank heaven.
look and perceive. Yep. And you're right. That's a good thing. And what was the book years ago?
Men are from Mars, women are from Venus.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's very true in many, many, many ways. But
Yeah,
and I tell you what, that
everyone-
terminology is dividing us, is it not? And we need to bring people together.
we need to have more love between men and women, okay? And there's a fabulous book called Love and Respect, or the fellow's, I think his name was Egrich. This came out like years ago, 15, maybe 20 years ago. And it talks about how women, more than the number one issue that's important for women in their marriages is love. Okay.
Yeah.
Here's the big news. For men, it's respect.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard this before.
Matters
Absolutely.
more to them. Now, the onus of responsibility on women is even higher than it is for men, because we are to love them. We're to love God, love each other, and love, as we love ourselves. We don't get off with the love, okay?
Right.
But
Right.
we are called to respect our husbands.
Yeah.
No matter what. Figure out how to, my husband's he's a strong personality.
Yeah. Well, if you're a member of Congress, you didn't get there because you were, not a strong person, right?
Right. So am I, okay? but it took us a while to figure out how to communicate with each other in ways that were edifying and
Yes.
encouraging, rather than disparaging or negative.
But you did it. You worked through it. You
Oh
did
yeah,
it.
oh yeah. And he
Yeah.
was just this morning, he was walking by I was sitting in the kitchen. I get up later than he does, and I was having my bowl of cereal, and he walked by and he just want you to know I love you, and he kept going.
Right. Right. It was a flyby. Exactly.
Right. But just little touches like that are so important.
It is. And, when I look around at our fellow Americans, growing up, we didn't have this political division quite like we do now. And
No.
everybody that was out there, Republican or Democrat, our Constitution, all the basic things we agreed on, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of religion, the right to bear arms, all those basic things we agreed on. And we might disagree on how big we want the government to be, things like that, policy issues.
But what my husband has expressed is that we were all rowing in the same direction.
Yes, we're
Everybody
rowing.
was,
Yep.
we had different ideas about how to get there, but we were on the side of the country. We were looking,
Yes,
but now it's not like that anymore. It
that's
is
right.
not like that. As a matter of fact, Rasmussen, again, one of the top pollsters in the country, came out a couple of months ago with 49% of Democrats would prefer to scrap the Constitution and rewrite it.
Right. And you know what that is? That's for a lack of understanding of the gift of self-governance that they were handed from generations back to 1776, and that Constitution that was written in 1787, and people have died for that over the 2 centuries,
Right.
and they don't understand the gift because when we grew up, you remember this, we had to learn American history and we had to learn civics, right?
Oh,
And civics, for people that don't know what that is out there, we were taught how the government works and why.
mm-hmm.
So we grew up informed and we knew, and we couldn't get out of high school unless you had those credits.
Yeah.
And I think people are walking around, like you said, only 8% of people are talking about anything political. You've got to know these basics. If you want your children and your children's children and their children, to have freedom and there to be an American republic in 100 years, we got to wake up as a population, and our children have got to learn what it means to be American.
Well, and we don't have a whole lot of time. This is the election of the century coming
Yeah.
up. I mean, God created three institutions: the family, the church, and government.
Right.
Okay. And to ignore or refuse to participate in government because it's just too dirty and I don't want to. Well, it's too dirty because too many good people are not participating.
Yeah.
Okay? But to ignore our responsibility, our civic responsibility to participate in government, to vote, and not just to vote, but to figure out who to vote for and why.
Yeah. Right. And I think this is what happened.
Is just as consequential as ignoring our families or our faith.
Yes. Right. And I think where we went wrong, because a lot of this happened on our watch, Nancy, because we're the generation that let it kind of slide here. We were expecting that our schools were teaching the right things and that the people we were electing were doing the right things.
Yep.
And I think we kind of woke up a little bit too late that these things had gone off the rails, and it happened on our watch. We had a normalcy bias that the education system was running like it did when we grew up.
Well, we found out through COVID, thank God. I mean,
Right.
That it isn't working.
Yeah.
And now it's pouring into the streets in the form of the most hideous bigotry.
Yeah.
Against a whole nation of people.
Right. That's right.
Netanyahu. The transformation that's happened to our former rowing in the same direction, Democrat Party, of wanting to scrap we're on. It reminds me of what Netanyahu said when Netanyahu was asked, why don't you just compromise with the Palestinians? He said, it's impossible to cooperate with an opponent who believes that you don't have the right to exist.
Right. That's right. Right.
And what we're looking at here is we've got a major political party that doesn't believe our Constitution,
right,
as written, should exist.
That's right. And either you believe in having freedom and having a free society that's self-governed, or you don't. And if you want America to survive, at the very basic fundamental thing is every candidate you vote for, they should at least stand for those things that are put in that Constitution and Bill of Rights. And if they're not, you need to not vote for them. Period.
Okay, here's the key. Okay, to voting. There are two-party platforms, right?
Right.
Those platforms are two radically different visions for the future of this country and your life. Okay, radically different visions. And if you those platforms guide and reflect actually the beliefs and philosophy and of those who write the platforms. Now, no matter what a candidate says on the campaign trail, once they get to DC,
what do they do?
The power of the pressure that is on, they will vote in accord with their party's platform an average of 82% of the time.
Right.
If you want to know who to vote for, read the party platforms and then choose the candidate that most closely represents your belief, your worldview, and you won't go wrong. There are about at least a half a dozen really good voting guides that are on the internet. Okay.
Yeah.
You got to be careful who you're listening to, but if you can find a contrast between the two party platforms, that's where you need to go.
Yeah, and they're tricking you. This is kind of how I see it, being from outside of politics. They're distracting you with issues, like they want to make the whole election this year about abortion. No, what you really want to know out of that candidate is, do they support the basic American values that you support? Right? You want to know, are they going to uphold the Constitution of this country? So we have a republic in 100 years. Don't fall for the trick, about the issue voting, that they're throwing at you, because it is a trick. It's a hat trick.
Well, there's a lot of spin going on, but there always has been. I mean, the spins,
right.
The spin started on what Jesus actually said about 5 minutes after the ascension. Okay. Our Bible, everything that is in that Bible is a first person witness. Okay. And nothing was allowed in the scripture. The scriptures, by the way, are still to this day the oldest and most trusted manuscripts ever.
Right.
It's also the scriptures are the best-selling book of all time in all the world ever.
Right.
And we do not allow those scriptures in our schools.
Yeah, and we did until the 60s. It was a textbook in every schoolhouse in America till the 60s.
Well, that's because of what we were just talking about, the spin. Okay, the spin about the separation of church and state
Right.
used to convince that current Supreme Court that the separation of church and state, those words are found nowhere in any one of our founding documents.
That's right.
It's
That's right.
totally, it's spin,
Yeah.
okay? And they spun it to the point that the Supreme Court bought it.
Yeah.
And now we've got, and since that time, Jeffrey, every single marker of a healthy society has been in free fall since
That's
the
right.
early 60s. Every single marker.
Yeah.
Do you
And
know-
our founders said that for our Constitution to survive, we had to have a just and moral society.
Right.
And say what you will, but when kids were growing up, even if they didn't have a Christian household, they were at least getting those basic morals, because they were taught in school. And
Yeah.
and so we were raising children that had a good sense of right and wrong, right?
Absolutely. And, Chuck Colson, who went to prison during Watergate, came out and started this huge prison ministry that's in over 120 countries now.
Yeah.
The reason he started that ministry is he realized when he was in prison over Watergate, he was the president's legal counsel. And he had a transforming encounter with Christ just before he went to prison. He came out and he realized that the reason that we are in such a lost society, the reason those fellows are in those prisons and women is that they flat out did not know the difference between right and wrong.
Right. Isn't that
They just
amazing?
didn't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So we got a tall order ahead of us, but we are outgunned, we are out financed, we are out strategized, we're outnumbered, we are out everything.
Well,
But
I'm going to tell you this, Lori Flynn in the movie that's out, General Flynn, it was on the
Yeah.
zoo yesterday. She
Yeah.
said, we need to drive the evil out. In other words, we don't need to give up on this country. We don't
No.
need to burn it down, start all over, all these things that, people are talking about, let's just get rid of this or get rid of that or pack the Supreme Court or whatever. No, we need to drive the evil out so this country and its government functions the way that it was set up by our founding fathers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But we're outgunned, we're outnumbered, we're outfinanced for sure. I mean, I
Yeah.
could give you statistics that would just make you cry
Right.
about that. And but you know what? So were our founders.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, we have that greatest generation. My dad and my mother were part of it, and my dad fought in the Second World War, and I bleed red, white, and blue. Okay, in case you
Yeah.
didn't know this, but we have been given a legacy and a heritage, a standard.
That's right.
When that it's our turn now to uphold. It's our turn. And we either rise to this challenge or we lose the country. It is
That's
that.
it.
And I'm convinced, because we are surrounded on every side, as hard pressed on every side, as St. Paul mentioned, that the only thing that is going to win this country back are the people of this country. It's the
Yeah, and
only,
Ronald Reagan said it. We're one generation away,
yeah,
always, from losing freedom. Yep.
and we're there.
And we're seeing that, right? We're really seeing that up close. When he said it, people think, it's a great saying. No, we are witnessing it in real time.
This close.
Yeah.
We are this close. This republic is hanging by a thread. And when only 8% of Americans are actually paying attention to the point that they get below the headlines.
Right.
There's a book that has just come out called Arabella that talks about this cabal of billionaires who are, I mean, there are billions and billions of dollars funneling through these billions
Yeah.
behind almost every headline you read.
Yeah. Right. Right. And
And
money, money
they
runs
don't
this
want this
planet.
Constitution. They do not, they hate the Constitution. And the only people standing in their way are people who understand what we're up against. The people of the family and the church.
Yeah.
And if they
And now you're getting into my mandate because, the Zoo podcast will eventually be part of something called the Sheep TV. And the cute joke about that is, listen, they can buy all politicians. That's easy to do. They can buy majority interest, in all the corporations and media and all that and tell them what to do. But I'll tell you what, you wake up 100 million sheep, those of us out here that love this country, they don't know what to do with that. They can't fight 100 million sheep that wake up and say, get out.
There's a guy by the name of Tim Daughtry that wrote a book called Waking the Sleeping Giant.
Yes, right.
The giant is awakening.
That's right.
The giant is the American spirit right now, Jeffrey, is kicking in.
It is kicking in. Do you remember what happened when in Egypt they elected, in a fraudulent election, a Muslim Brotherhood president? 10 million people spilled out into the streets in Cairo. And eventually the military had to take over and they held a new election and they got the president they have now, El-Sisi, which he has led in an amazing way, a government that supports all religions, and it made Egypt a marvelous place. But that is the power of people standing up and saying to bad forces trying to take over their country, get out, right? We want freedom, we want America. So we wake up those 100 million sheep, we win, right? And our country survives.
Hands down, an individual is one drop. But
yeah,
a lot of individuals together is an ocean.
Yeah.
Okay. And we need a tsunami of Americans, individual Americans,
Yes.
to take the gauntlet and go to war here. Because this is a war.
Yep. Stand up, get involved, volunteer, be a poll worker, start speaking, hit the button on your phone and start talking on, social media like you and I are doing now. It doesn't have to be a produced show like this. It could just be you talking, right?
Yep.
We need to start making our voices be heard.
Yeah. Everybody.
All right. So let's shift gears a little bit and I'm going to, hang on here. I'm going to get up the information. So tomorrow,
I want to get a lick in. Well, maybe we can do another segment someday. But there's a huge issue that I'd like to mention.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and talk about it, and then we'll talk about the first landing event. What you got?
Okay. These billionaires we've been talking about, they have been funding Christian organizations and seminaries and all of that, and with the intent in mind to twist scripture to fit a leftist agenda. That's why we've got so many churches, okay, that are flying flags under the other than the American or the Christian flag, etc. The National Association of Evangelicals, that has been speaking for the evangelical voice for decades, has gone woke. Okay?
Right. And by woke, we mean they're starting to accept people in that is really just goes completely against. Listen, folks, the Bible hasn't changed. So when people start, accepting things that are contrary to what that is by its very definition contrary to Christianity. Right.
Right. Well, the word whoa. Let me just put it this way: one of their major spokespersons is saying that Jesus was a socialist. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Like I said, if you want to cherry pick, you can make that Bible say anything you want it to say.
Yeah.
But
Of course.
take the whole counsel of Scripture. I mean, so anyway, there is an emerging American Association of Evangelicals, of which I'm very much a part. Okay. And
Yeah, and I think you told me yesterday one of the traditional associations that's been around for a long time, really originally founded by Billy Graham, has absolutely started adopting these, anti-Christian policies, right?
Christianity Today magazine.
Yeah,
Uh, you just got to be careful.
yeah,
You know the whole counsel of Scripture, that all the Bible is God letting us know, first of all, our history, the history of Him, the history of mankind, the history in relation to His Son,
right.
and the manual for how to have a fulfilled, productive, constructive, happy
Yeah, happy
life,
life, right.
free from shame and guilt and mistakes. And it's the manual, it's the handbook. It's
Yeah, and I'm going to
also
add this, to what you're saying. Um, America has the ability for people to come here and worship God however they see fit. You know, it's part of our religious freedom. It's kind of baked into our whole system of government. But what America knew, since the majority of this nation grew up with those values, those foundational Judeo-Christian values, that made us different. They knew they could trust us. They knew that we did things and we dealt with people in a more fair way. And this made America a unique city on the hill, the light on the hill that brought balance to the world and was a light in the darkness. This is what we've lost when we've gotten to where we are now, right? And we need to, that's why it's important to get that back. If America's light goes out in the world, I think we'd go into 1,000 years of dark ages.
oh yeah.
All
So
right. And what's the name? What's the name of the association that started up that you're supporting now? That is
American Association of Evangelicals.
okay. American Association of Evangelicals. You guys check that out. You know how to find things out there on Google, but
Yeah, it's on the web. The thing that's powerful about this is that the National Association that has gone, to the left,
yeah,
interpreting, they have had, there was a bill before Congress, and I was absolutely stunned that some people on the right voted for that bill. And then, I mean, these guys are scheduled every 15 minutes of the day
right.
and night. Okay. When they finish at the office, they go to reception after reception after reception. Then they go home for the weekend and work harder,
Yeah.
with their constituents and meetings and everything. They don't have time to read every single word of every single bill.
Which, by the way, I think is by design. I think they try and throw a lot of things at them where they don't have time at the last minute.
It's a technique. I mean,
Yeah.
it's perfected to the point of it's beyond sanity.
Right.
Anyway, but if there's a bill that comes across their desk, and by the way, I'd like to interject this. The one question my husband asked about every bill that came across his desk was, is this bill good for the country?
Right.
The long run, in the long run.
Right.
Not is it good for my district, my political career, my party? Is it good for the country?
Right.
In the long run. But anyway, so they get all these bills coming and going. And if they get a bill that the National Association of Evangelicals weighs in on, they weight that. And the National Association of Evangelicals is advising them now
Yeah, right.
legislation that is contributing to our demise as a country.
Yeah, and that's pretty incredible, right? And so really the trust is broken, and I hope members of Congress, uh, have realized that and will start pulling away from automatically just supporting something at the last minute because it has their
Yeah.
stamp of approval. You know.
Well, my husband had another rule that if you came to him within 48 hours of a vote with, you got to vote this way, or you got to, if you don't get your point of view to me
Yeah.
within
Right.
48 hours of the vote, don't bother me. Because the very first term he was in office, he somebody came blowing in, going, "Oh, you've got to do it this way, and you've got to." So he voted wrong on a bill.
Right.
And he went, "Never again,
Right.
never again."
Right.
So,
Right. It's
but
embarrassing for
now they're
the.
not getting a 1,000-page bill until 48 hours before they vote.
Yeah. It's really horrible. Nobody can absorb that, right, and know what they're voting on. You know.
It's a
And,
technique to slide a whole lot of stuff through that nobody has to be exposed for voting for or against.
yeah, and plus, a lot of these bills are being written by a consulting firm in New York or somebody else. It's not being written by the Congress anymore, right? I mean, even that in and of itself is wrong. Even just to say that out loud, our lawmakers have become law passers, and
Oh yeah, but no, not all of them. Not all of them. We've got
I
some
know we have good ones, but I'm just saying this is what they've tried to put into place. Not give them time to read them.
but yeah, that's for
Yeah,
sure. But one thing, there are really good lobbyists in that. I mean, these guys depend, and women depend on, if this piece of legislation is going to affect an entire industry
yeah,
in a negative way, they need to know what the consequences of that vote is going to be. And
right.
I'll tell you one thing though, if there's ever a lobbyist that comes through the door and doesn't give them the straight scoop, they'll never come through the door again.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yep. And
So
it should be
the
that way.
lobbyists are important. I
Yeah.
mean, the Little Sisters of the Poor have lobbyists.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Right. But you
But
know what I mean?
you come to
They're really kind of shackling them, trying to make sure they don't get to read. There's a lot of bad that they're doing to try and get bad things through Congress.
oh yeah, no
Yeah.
question. No question. And here we are,
And here we are.
$5 trillion in debt.
Yeah. Yep.
There was a congressman having a fundraiser in another state that I lived in, and I'll never forget this. He said, he was a wonderful guy, and the question came from the audience, what about this bridge that we really, that we need to, and he just said, we can't afford it.
Yeah. Right.
Just said to, constituents, we can't afford it.
Yeah.
And I mean, if they would just say that, there's not
Yeah.
a family on the planet that can't, when my mom used to say, reared in the Depression, okay, when she used to say, we can't afford it, that was the end of the conversation.
That's it. Either that or go figure out a way to raise the money to do it, whatever it is. Right. So, no money means no money. So, all right. So shifting gears here, then I guess about, let's talk about this first landing event. If you guys don't know what that is, I'm going to tell you what it is right quick. But about a year ago, there was a special event at Cape Henry, Virginia called First Landing. I'm just going to give you a quick history about it. In 1607, the first settlers came to this country. They landed, there at Cape Henry. They were dying, whether it was disease or starvation, Indians, they were in really bad shape. And so the pastor gathered them up, took them to the beach. They erected a massive wooden cross and they prayed to God. And at that time, that was the first people there, to establish colonies. So all of America was the land, really, would have been the colony. And they prayed to God, listen, if you will save us, if you will save our lives, we will build a Christian nation here. And beyond that, we will teach our children to be lights of Jesus Christ to the world. And we know the story. We know how it ends because they did survive. They founded the Jamestown colony. And, 30 years later, the Mayflower comes and, we get to where we are now. And the point is, they made a covenant with God. So the purpose of this event a year ago was to gather, go out on that beach. I was there. It was amazing. A great lineup of speakers. Glenn Beck, you were there. There were David Barton, the historian. There were a lot of great people that spoke that day. But the event was to reestablish, was to reconfirm in prayer to God on that beach that we are a Christian nation and we'll continue to be that light to the world. And it was a terrific event. You can find this. There's a website, firstlanding1607.com, and I'll show that here in a minute. So this Monday, they're doing something similar to that. And at the governor's offices, I guess in Virginia, and you're a part of that, Nancy. Tell us, what are you doing on Monday? What's this all about?
Well, there's a re-commemoration based upon what happened last year, and today they're about. I'm still in DC, but they are out on the First Landing site, at the site of the cross, the cement cross that commemorates that moment when those 104 men got off of those ships and planted that wooden cross in the shore,
right,
and dedicated this country to Jesus Christ. And then they wrote a covenant. The pastor that was, and a covenant is not, it is a it's not just a promise. It's not, this is back when a man's word was his bond.
Yes.
And the covenant that they wrote with God exists to this day. It will be read most likely again tomorrow. And it's time for America to get back to her roots.
Yeah, and there's a big difference in a covenant versus, just a promise or something. And I'll give you an example. God made a covenant with Abraham about building Israel into a great nation. And that happened, and that survived for a long time. They were the greatest nation on earth in their time until they fell away. And they started worshiping, all these different crazy idols and garbage, and their society degraded. And God let them get hauled off into slavery, destroyed their nation.
And the Bible is plumb full of the stories like the one you're just mentioning.
Right.
When a nation looks to and follows God, things go well. When they turn their back on God, things do not go well. And we're there.
Yep, we're there. We're absolutely there. Yep. Right. And it's what we've talked about really through this whole show today, is that we need to get back to that moral foundation that built America. This is what made America great again. Right? Was that foundation. So if you want to be a part of this,
all morals, all morality means, all the word moral means is the difference between right and wrong. That's all it means.
That's right. And let me see if I can get the web browser up here, and we're going to take a quick look. Here we go. There we go. So there's a website here. It is First Landing 1607. That's the numbers, not spelled out, but firstlanding1607.com. on Monday, this will be live streamed right here on this page. So if you can't go in person, if you can't go in person, you can watch the live stream. If you do want to go in person, this is at the Patrick Henry Building in Richmond, Virginia. It's the East Reading Room, 1111 East Broad Street, Richmond, Virginia, 23219. And do you know the time? Okay, it's 2 to 5 p.m. tomorrow, correct?
Well, no, check-in is at 1, so they're going to start at 2, so you want to get there and get a seat.
Okay, all right.
But I think they mentioned that they're sold out.
Okay, yeah, and I think I heard that too from some of the organizers. So, all right, so I guess you're getting ready. Do you live close by to where this is going on, or do you have to travel?
No, I live about an hour and a half from Richmond.
Okay.
Washington is about an hour and a half, but the highway can often be, it's been referred to as the world's largest parking lot.
Yeah, right.
So you always have to, that's a scourge of living in DC is
right.
Traffic is a challenge.
That's it. Well, Nancy, it's been a joy to have you on here today. We wish you safe travels on your way to Richmond tomorrow, and we'll look forward to seeing you and seeing the rest of this First Landing event.
Jeffrey, and we need your voice. We need you, and I mean, I'm so thrilled that you're back on the air and that you're doing this. It's really, really, really important.
Thank you for saying that.
Voice matters.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you this. I knew about a year ago that God was pushing me about getting back on the air. I didn't see me doing this, again. It wasn't a part of my life. And I've been really resistant about it. And I finally pushed the button here in the last couple of weeks. And I know it's the right thing. And I want to bring truth to the public. And I want to bring us together as a country. And I know it's the right thing. I know it's the right thing to be out here, exercising our freedom of speech and bringing people together and bringing them truth, right?
Critical.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. All right. Thank you. And we'll have to have you back on. We'll have to have you back on soon. You've got a lot of stuff that we probably need to talk about.
I think we both do.
Good. Absolutely. All right, Nancy Schulze, folks, and we will talk to you soon, Nancy.
See you later. Thanks, Jeffrey.
Thank you. All right, so Nancy Schulze, definitely terrific to have her on. Maybe it's not coming across just how influential Nancy has been out there in the political world, but my goodness, she has been very good at organizing women. Some of those conversations I've had with her in the last couple of days talking about that women outvote men by a huge margin. I found that such an interesting discussion. I do want to have her back on, so we can talk about that a little bit, because that is a fascinating topic. And we'll do that again soon. So anyway, we're going to wrap here on the 4th episode of the Zoo Podcast. Thank you for joining us. It is exciting to be back on the air with you guys. I do care deeply about our country. I care about bringing you truth, and we'll just continue walking on this journey together.
Let freedom ring across America. Let's stand up from sea to shining sea. Hand in hand, on and on. United we are proud, free and strong. Let freedom ring across America. Let freedom ring across America.